Coming up on today's Locked On Senators, there's plenty of high-end talent on the Sens blue line, from Thomas Chabot to Jake Sanderson and Jakob Chychrun. So which one of them is going to lead the team in points?
And Wednesday, it's time for a SensCentral Citizen. Today, it's Vick Gill. He tells us all about what it's like to be a Sens fan in the heart of enemy territory.
The heart of enemy territory is where you can also find Scott Wheeler. He did his 2020 redraft with the Athletic, and I think Sens fans are going to have trouble getting mad at this list. That's all coming up on today's edition of the Locked On Senators podcast. It's your team every day.
Your Locked On Senators, your daily podcast on the Ottawa Senators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
I'm Jake Sanderson, and you're listening to Locked On Senators podcast.
I'm Tim Stützle, and you're listening to the Locked On Senators podcast.
Welcome inside episode 847 of the Locked On Senators podcast. I'm Ross Levitan on the outskirts of enemy territory in Winnipeg, Manitoba, alongside Brandon Piller up in the Blue Mountains. Today's episode is brought to you by the FanDuel Sportsbook. It's the official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn today to get started. A reminder, you can subscribe to Locked On Senators wherever you get your podcasts. We're also free and available on YouTube. Today is Wednesday, July 26th, and Pilsy, our organizational value rankings are coming. They are spicier than my list of fruit rankings, but today we're talking about defensemen, and there's plenty to discuss when it comes to the offensive capabilities of the top three in particular.
Yeah, we'll save your fruit rankings for the end because we got to have a discussion about that. But a great poll on Locked On Senators at SensCentral on, I almost said Twitter. Is it Twitter or X?
X marks the spot where you find Twitter.
All right. I like that. So whatever you want to call it, you can find it there. This poll is actually pretty close right now, Ross. Maybe you can pull it up here, but the question is, which Sens defenseman will get the most points next season? And the options are Thomas Chabot, Jakob Chychrun, and Jake Sanderson. I voted Thomas Chabot. I think, yes, he did have a down year. I think a lot of Sens fans were hard on him, and there was a lot of kind of defensive lapse that were not great and did not turn out in his favor. And some of them even cost the Sens valuable goals against and even sometimes the game. But we're talking about points here. And Thomas Chabot has been leading this decor in points for a long time. And I really think that with Jake Sanderson emerging, taking some of that weight and responsibility off Thomas Chabot's shoulders, he's going to be able to thrive more offensively, and with hopefully having Jakob Chychrun as a defense partner, easily his best defense partner, especially when you consider how much time he's played with Nikita Zaitsev, that's going to be a boost as well. So for my money, I'm with 35% of the people, and I'm going Thomas Chabot.
Thomas Chabot has led the defense in scoring for, I'm still going right now. It's been at least since before the pandemic, and even, let's see, 2018-19. Yep, he was there as well. How about 2017-18? Of course, that was Erik Karlsson. So every year since Erik Karlsson left, when Thomas Chabot's been 22, now he's 26 rather, he's led this team in points. So not necessarily a hot take by you, Pilsy, but I do get where you're coming from with the fact he's bound to rebound, you got to think. And I think one of the keys for this season is for Thomas Chabot to be a plus player, and the points will come naturally through that.
Yeah.
Now,
he still had 41 points. Like, it's not like it was an absolute disaster. 41 points in 68 games for a defenseman. That's pretty good.
Yeah, it's not bad at all. It would actually be close to the career high of Jakob Chychrun, right? Or it's like
past the career high of Chychrun.
Right, but how many years has Chychrun played a full 82 games?
I think literally none.
Never. Yeah. Gotten to 68 as a rookie at 18 years old in the National Hockey League. Now, there is a bit of a caveat. He played 56 out of 56 in the COVID shortened season, and he had 41 points that year. So if you had a full season there, he also led the NHL in goals by a defenseman. This is kind of cool where the votes are coming in and you can see the update online. Nice. So I'm going to leave this here while we have this discussion as we continue, and the poll will be available tomorrow. We are recording here Tuesday mid-afternoon, but that will be available. You can go have your say on Twitter at SensCentral. I think I'm going with Jakob Chychrun. Okay. And the reason being, if you look at his time in Arizona, now health permitted, he has to play 70-plus games for this to be a valid take. But we know that the shot's elite. We know we saw him rip one against Columbus in his first home game with the Senators. The shot's elite, and I don't think he's been able to get as many, secondary assists with Arizona, where he just starts to play and it kind of the rest of the talent around him pushes the puck into the net. Whereas I think he's going to get that in Ottawa, playing with offensively gifted players. If he's with Chabot, I think he's going to, piggyback a little bit off Chabot's primary assists at time to time. But I think the goal scoring for Jakob Chychrun is why I have him a little bit ahead. And when you look at the Senators' power play, which we're going to save for a separate discussion, but I think there's an argument to be made with all the playmakers and how they like to use Timmy on the half wall on one side. He's a great playmaker, that maybe you want Chychrun to be at the top of the umbrella to just fire pucks on net. Because we know that the not problem, but the criticism of Thomas Chabot's game is that he takes that extra split second to decide on what he's going to do on the power play. Whereas Chychrun, if his motto is just wind up fire whenever you get it and let Brady get all the garbage in front for rebounds, I think that could be a pretty successful strategy on the power play.
Yeah, it's not bad. I for me though, Ross, Chychrun was an easy third place for me. I'm surprised that 37.5 people, the majority of the votes, are leading towards Chychrun, because I was deciding between Chabot and Sanderson. And I think Sanderson's kind of getting left out here because he was so good when Chychrun and Chabot were out. Like, even I remember having the mindset that even with Chabot and Chychrun coming back in, I would still put Sanderson as the defenseman on PP1. Like, even if they were healthy, I would still choose Sanderson, because the thing is, you talked about Chychrun on the power play with that shot. They have so many shooters. I want a facilitator more than a shooter as my defenseman on that top power play, because there's so many shooting options. And Chychrun's the type of guy where he's going to blast it like he did that Columbus goal you're talking about, and he's going to beat a goalie clean. Whereas I want a defenseman that's going to feather those pucks in. You're going to get tips, rebounds, deflections, all those sorts of things, and that can skate the line nicely, and that's going to be able to facilitate the cycle. And I think Sanderson would do a better job of that than Jakob Chychrun. So for me, I gave it to Chabot just because I still think as far as points goes, he's going to have the edge over Sanderson. But if you ask me this next season, I'm probably going Sanderson. So because Chychrun for me is about the shot and the defensive abilities to break down other opponents in transition. It's not so much about him being a finesse guy and getting points and carrying the puck up the ice, right? So that's just my opinion. For me, it's Chabot, Sanderson, then Chychrun.
I think there is something to be said at the fact that, and yes, I know the other guys got hurt for a certain part of the last stretch, but Jake Sanderson actually led this team in ice time in the final 22 games, played 23-47. I'm curious how much of it actually came on the power play. I'm going to look that up right now. But when you have a guy who is just scratching the surface, it's hard to bet against it. I get where you're coming from on that. When you go power play time on ice, and this is just from March 2nd, so when Jakob Chychrun was acquired to the Ottawa Senators, Jake Sanderson averaged 326 on the power play, Chabot 251, and Chychrun 210. So yeah, power play wise, at least from that small sample size, there is a case to be made that Jake Sanderson will get those opportunities. But it's a good problem to have, is it not, Pills?
Oh, it's a great problem to have. I mean, Ross, if you would have put this poll up the last 4 years, you would have got laughed out of Twitter or out of X, because it would have been 98% voting Thomas Chabot and the other 2% just being trolls. So
Mike Riley.
Yeah, Mike Riley, look out. Or just Brandy stands that were waiting for him to burst through this, the seam.
We actually got 3 people comment saying Brandstrom.
No.
He took a step.
Yeah, but is he going to... I don't even think Brandy will have more points than any 3 of these guys, let alone the most on the team.
Like Stube or someone.
No, I think Brandy will be number 4. I don't think that's that crazy.
It wasn't last year.
Zub had more? Or no, Hamonic.
Hamonic had more.
Yeah. I don't think we'll probably won't be seeing Hamonic playing top 4 minutes and paired with Jake Sanderson again, though.
Oh, which
or
is,
any power play time. He got power play time last season.
he had more power play goals than Brandy did.
Yeah.
No. All jokes aside, though, because obviously Hamonic, we've always been in his corner as a depth guy on this team, and hopefully his salary reflects that's where he's going to play as either a bottom pair or a 7th defenseman. But hey, good problems to have at the top. You have Jakob Chychrun, who had 18 goals in 56 games in that COVID-shortened season. Last year had 9 in 48, 33 points in 48 games, though, Pilsy. Like, that's the thing. It's all about staying healthy with Jake Sanders or Jakob Chychrun, and that's why I think you get that pushback from where you're saying that Chychrun was a far third, because points per game, he's like right up on par. It's just how often is he going to play that full amount of games?
Yeah, and that's the thing. Obviously, I'm hoping he stays healthy as long as possible, but I think we kind of have to expect him to have a couple injuries throughout the season. Hopefully not major, but for me, I'm kind of setting my expectations at Jakob Chychrun playing 65 games.
Because, with Jakob Chychrun, how when he came in, we realized like he was just focusing on the defense, especially on the road, those first couple games. Him with the Sens and Jake Sanderson had identical points per game with Ottawa last year. Kind of a funny thing there. But let us know in the comments, Jakob Chychrun, Jake Sanderson, Thomas Chabot, who will lead the Ottawa Senators in points by a defenseman? I got Chychrun. Pilsy's got Thomas Chabot, but Pilsy's kind of hitching his wagon to 2 out of the 3 here, just going all against me here. So 2 out of 3 ain't bad, but I'm taking Jakob Chychrun for myself. We got plenty more to discuss when it comes to different Senators topics, but when we talk about Jake Sanderson, you have to remember the 2020 draft. Yes. We're going to get to Scott Wheeler's redraft of 2020. I think Sens fans will be pretty happy to see what's at the top of that list. And we've got a SensCentral Citizen to get to. That's all next. You're listening to Locked On Senators.
Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. They are the trusted online sportsbook of the Locked On Podcast Network. They're America's #1 sportsbook, for crying out loud. You'd be silly to go anywhere else. And if you're looking at other options, you can take your first swing at betting MLB baseball on FanDuel and get 10 times your first bet amount in bonus bets up to $200. So if you bet $20, you'll land $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. That's the key right there. I've been having some luck betting on the Jays. The Jays are out west right now, so right before bed, I just put a couple shekels on the money line and then wake up with some green numbers like I did last night. And you can do the same, all betting on the best sportsbook app there is. It's safe, secure, super easy to use on FanDuel. You get those green numbers instantly. There's no better place to bet on baseball than FanDuel. So sign up today. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get up to $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official partner of Major League Baseball.
Today's episode is also brought to you by Shawarma Palace. I always wake up in cold sweats dreaming about the day I can get back to Shawarma Palace. I need my fix, and you can get yours at any of Shawarma Palace's 7 locations in Ottawa. You can also follow them on Instagram, Shawarma Palace Ottawa, and find out where the shawarma, like, what should we even call it? The shawarma caravan? We need to get a name for this thing. They've got on-the-go shawarma that can come to an event near you. So go check them out, Shawarma Palace Ottawa. You can find them in the Saint Laurent Shopping Center. You can find them on Rideau Street, my favorite location, the flagship store, if I will, at Chapel Street, right by Augusta. You've got Bank and Hunt Club. You've got Bank in Centertown, right by Gladstone. You've got Carleton University campus. You are never too far away from a Shawarma Palace. I get the platter. I get the chicken platter with the extra garlic sauce. Pilsy's a wrap guy. He loves how they put the press on it, and you get those like that heat grill on it on the outside. It's so delicious. And you can also get their iconic roasted potatoes with garlic sauce, rosemary, the whole bit. So good, so tasty. Get fuel filled at Shawarma Palace. If you want them to bring it to you, just go through Uber Eats. So eat like a king, eat like a queen, eat at Shawarma Palace. Proud sponsor of Locked On Senators. So let them know that we sent you to Shawarma Palace. Oh, I can't wait to get my hands on a Shawarma Palace. All right, now let's get to today's SensCentral Citizen. Here is Vick Gill. All right, we now welcome on this week's SensCentral Citizen. We're bringing on Vick Gill. Vick, what's going on, man? Welcome to Locked On Senators.
Well, thank you guys. Pleasure to be here. Looking forward to speaking to you guys for a very long time.
Well, you know what's awesome is seeing a guy we know is in the heart of enemy territory rocking a Brady Tkachuk jersey. How'd you become a Sens fan over in the GTA?
I guess just growing up as a kid, it was either I grew up around the GTA. So as I was growing up, that we had the pizza line, the Ray Emery time. So I think around that time's when I fell in love with the team. It was President's Trophy team. Leafs sucked, so it just gave me another point to to make fun of, and then just ride or die since then.
So living in the GTA, how did you avoid being a Leafs fan? Like, were family and friends all Leafs fans too, and you just said, I'm not going to be a part of this situation? And like you mentioned, the Sens were hot at that time, so that's where you decided to pledge your allegiance, or how did that all shape out?
Yeah, that was basically it. Everybody was like a Leaf fan and family friends, and then at that time, I was just starting to get into hockey, and I was like, the Sens are good, and then I just picked the Sens, and then that's been that.
Yeah, that's that's a good time to get in. So you mentioned the pizza line, Ray Emery. What are some of your earliest memories as a Sens fan?
It was that Ray Emery time when Ray Emery just took the team on his back and took them to the I believe it was the '07 final against Anaheim. It was a heartbreaker, but Razors was like one of my favorite players growing up, is what really got me into that. And then the the downfall of the team afterwards was kind of heartbreaking, but it was good.
I like that. Always have time for some Ray Emery love. That season was wild because that was a season where he fought Marty Biron, fought Andrew Peters, and got suspended for, I think it was slashing Maxime Lapierre or somebody across the face in Montreal. And I think it was the game he came back from that where everything hit the fan in Buffalo. But man, he really grabbed the bull by the horns and took that team on a great playoff run. So he's an all-time favorite for me as well. Have you ever gotten to see the Sens live, Vic?
No, I'm trying to actually go to the home opener this year. I've been trying
Yes.
to drag some people in to finally come, let's just watch a game in Ottawa.
Yeah, that's a must, man. They're playing Philly too, so you get a little ceremony for Claude Giroux's 1,000th point as well. So no, I think that's a must, and especially Pillsy, if you're gonna go to a Sens game for the first time, like home opener, playoffs, like those would be the two that I'd recommend.
Yeah, the home opener is an absolute blast. Like I'm gonna pretty much vow to go to every home opener for the rest of my life. It's can't miss opportunity, and especially finally it's on a Saturday. Now it is a matinee game. I can't decide if I like that more or less, but Saturday game at home and up against a weaker opponent. So it's shaping up to be one hell of a day.
Well, last year the home opener turned out well against a very good opponent.
Yeah, and what that was a Tuesday night, so yeah,
That's Tuesday of your life.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was
Now,
jumping off the couches for that game. It was it came out of nowhere.
Who's your favorite player on the team right now? Let's say outside of Brady Tkachuk.
I was gonna say I think I might know the answer to that.
Or we can see the C on your jersey. Who else gets you fired up?
Timmy's up there. Drake, well, the whole top six, to be honest with you. Chychrun, I was ecstatic when we signed Chychrun. Chabot, I've been a long time Chabot fan too. Chabot's the other jersey that I have as well. Actually, I have a pretty solid jersey collection.
Let's hear it. What do you have?
Right now, I have Carlson. I'm trying to find an Alfredson one. I have obviously Tkachuk. Chabot, I also have Stützle. I'm going to get once around the home opener, going to visit the Sens shop to get a Stützle one. My goal is to try to get one like every year, so I can get like the whole top six, and then eventually make my way down to the decor, and then who knows, I might get a goalie one soon too as well.
I mean, Jonas Korpisalo 5-year deal. That's a good investment.
Yeah.
I mean, if you could find a Ray Emery one, that would be all time. Pulling up to the home opener with a Ray Emery jersey, come on.
Yeah, for sure. It's hard to find. It's like you gotta go deep into Ottawa somewhere to find them.
I feel like the Ray Emery jersey you need is one of the red ones. Like that's what I picture Ray Emery in the old red ones, the 3D logos.
Wait, sure. Like the old 3D, like the Senegoth?
Yeah.
Because he stuck around, I think, for a year, maybe a year and a half after they switched the jersey. But no, like the 07 Cup, man, get it with the 07 Cup final patch. Now we're really cooking. Man, a lot of those jerseys are guys who haven't been on the team for that long. So you've been on a bit of a rampage over the last little while, hey?
Yeah, for sure. I've been that Ray Emery jersey though, I don't know where like I'm gonna find it. It's gonna take forever to look for
eBay.
it.
You gotta
eBay probably, yeah.
eBay sometimes, man.
Or what if you're looking for specialty jerseys like that, check out like flea markets and things like that. Like you'll be amazed at what you can find in a random market for like $15, especially in the GTA. You can find probably cheap Sens jerseys that are just like buried in the back wardrobes of those markets.
I picked up, actually funny you mentioned that, I picked up a random Stoner Mark Stone shirt, and there's like random players minus Stone's obviously not a random player, but a few other ones like a Vermette one I randomly found one day.
Nice.
That's awesome. Yeah, I got my Alfredson, my white Alfredson jersey with the C, perfect condition at a Toronto store.
Yeah.
It was just closing, and I was walking by, and there was a Sens jersey hanging up in the window. I said, "How much?" He said, "How about $10 for it?" Said, sure, I guess I can do that. And so, yeah, always keep your eye out around there, man, for sure.
Oh, for sure.
So, what are you thinking about the team this year? You think they've got a good shot at playoffs the way they're currently constructed?
I think yeah, they'll be pretty solid. Like I think our biggest problem last year was that our D-core wasn't there in a full year. Chychrun, development of Sanderson, Chabot. I feel like will do better with like less time, because now he doesn't have to carry the load, right? It's kind of evenly spread out amongst even, I would say the entire 6D core, like everybody. And then I kind of feel like that's what let us down last year. So even though we lost to Brinkett, I think similar to what Brandon's been saying, we really didn't need like a top 6 guy. We needed like a 5-6 guy, and I think Kubilak fills that role. And then Josh Norris comes back, right? So you get your 30-40 goals back.
Yeah.
So I think we'll be solid. I think we just kind of need to figure out what the bottom 6 will look like. Let's see what Pierre Dorian pulls out in the next couple of weeks. Hopefully we get Tarasenko or one of those guys, Tatar, that we've been looking at. I think I'm losing hope as the months go on, though.
Yeah, so I want to touch on that. Is you mentioned a couple options there, but not what do you want to happen, but what do you think will happen? Like, do you think Pierre's just going to sign the RFAs and roll into the season like this, or do you think there's one more move that he's going to do?
I think as the time goes on, I think Pinto's probably the only person that like they're left. Well, Igor as well too. And then once they sign those two, I don't think he's got another move in the bank unless he pulls one out of his hat the last second. I think we're pretty much the team set, and then we're kind of just banking on, I guess, Igor Ridley or one of those guys to have like a breakout season.
Yeah, is there one of them out of all the prospects who you're hoping really takes a step forward this year?
Yeah, I think it'll be Ridley. I think Ridley with a year under his belt, a little bit more muscle, a little bit more size. I think he'll have a breakthrough season this year.
Nice. And let's shift to Belleville and prospect talk a little bit. Who's someone of up and coming Sens that either in their respective junior or college league or in Belleville that you think is going to pop off this year?
I think Crooker's probably going to start his season down there, and I think he'll probably have another hopefully injury-free season, and I think he'll do good. I'm trying to think of the defenseman, the one that we got back just now, Sabrango, right? Correct?
Yeah, Donovan Sabrango. Yep.
I think he'll have a good season down there with that defensive structure as well, and then hopefully the goalie is either I'm pretty sure Mads is probably going to spend his time down there, and so is Mandalese. So one of those two, I think, with especially Mando actually with his time in the ECHL, I believe that he had the playoff experience. Yep. I think another year in in developmental will do good for him as well. And then we also got I don't think Boucher is going to spend a lot of time down there. I think he might be. I think Tyler Boucher might be up before Christmas.
Who plays more NHL games in the next 2 seasons? Who plays more NHL games in the next 2 seasons? Tyler Boucher or Igor Sokolov?
Oh, I'm just going to say rationally, I think it's going to be Igor. Emotionally, my heart wants Tyler Boucher to play more games, but I think Igor, just the way he plays, he skates, he kind of just fits that bottom 6 mold that they need. Boucher, I think they're just going to let him marinate for another year or so.
Yeah, hasn't played many games, right? He kind of got screwed with COVID initially, where it's just like you can't find ice time. Like if you go to his elite prospects, like I think the most games he's played in a season since he was a kid is like 20, 25. It feels like he needs really to just get down there and play consistently and get a chance to take another step. I only asked the question, like, they're both right wing. They're both, up and coming, where it's like, how many spots are going to be available if this team's competing where you need these guys to kind of plug and play. But if they're good enough, maybe they're going to need their own ice time. So I'm curious about those two going into camp. I'm also thinking maybe Roby Järventie gets his first NHL games this year as well, second round pick from 2020. But if there's one thing that makes you nervous going into this season, if things aren't going to go well, where do you think the most likely area that would be?
I think it's just like our injuries. Like I'm afraid of Josh Norris's shoulder. Chychrun's like health has also been in question. Chabot's never played like a full season, I think the past 2 or 3 seasons. And then who knows what Forsberg's knees are going to be like. I know he's been skating over the summer, and he's probably been, I think since the beginning of this year, he's been relatively healthy. He's been skating. So hopefully like, full recovery. But and I also actually, it's his MCL. So I think MCL is easier to recover from than your ACL.
Yep.
So, but there's a lot of like injury concerns just coming out of last year. You got PTSD from all the injuries we got.
Yeah, that was the nightmare of last season. That press box was packed at the end of the year with all the players up there. So hopefully we don't see that again this year. Now, Vic, final question for me, and thanks for joining us. This has been awesome. I guess it's not really a question. It's more, I like to do this with SensCentral Citizens, just opening the floor up to you. Is there a story you had loaded that you wanted to tell, or a hot take you had? Because I hate it when we finish a SensCentral Citizen and they're like, oh, I forgot to talk about this, or I wanted to say this, we didn't get to it. So floor is yours.
I don't have like a hot take or anything, but I do think like Timmy's gonna break through 100 this year. I have like a feeling in my gut that he's probably gonna break through. And then, you know what, wildest, hottest take? I think Brady wins the Hart Trophy is what I'm gonna throw.
Oh, okay.
I put money on it, so let's see.
Woo!
If Brady wins the Hart Trophy, then they're making the playoffs. I'll tell you that for free. So my final question, Vic, and we appreciate you joining us, is if the Senators do make the playoffs in the Atlantic Division, which team is going to be out that made it last year for Ottawa to jump in?
I think Boston. I've been banking on like the demise of Boston for like the past 2 years. I'm just trying to remember who else is in the division.
Well, Toronto, Florida.
Yeah. I think I'm gonna go with Boston, and then maybe we'll see what I think. Like between us and Florida, like if Florida didn't get hot right when we got cold, like that could have been Ottawa easily.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing too is Florida had those really tough. I'm not sure about their status for the start of the season, but I don't know if Matthew Tkachuk coming off his sternum or Ekblad, these guys had some pretty serious injuries. So I don't know if they're gonna. Well, you know what? We're talking ourselves kind of like we did with Boston last year. Oh, no McAvoy and no Marchand to start the season. But hey, Vic's going for the king, going for the number 1 team in the NHL, saying they're gonna miss. And Brady's going to lead the Ottawa Senators to a playoff spot. You can go follow Vic on Twitter at Vick Gill, and you can also subscribe to the Locked On Senators YouTube channel and wherever you download your podcast. Vic, we appreciate you being a SensCentral Citizen, man. It was great catching up with you, and we're looking forward to seeing you guaranteed at the home opener.
For sure. I'll make sure I reach out to you guys.
Today's episode is also brought to you by the Glebe Central Pub. You can find the Glebe Central Pub in the heart of the Glebe at 779 Bank Street. Great people, great events, and that's something that Pilsy, we got to touch on, because the events at the Glebe Central Pub, I feel like is what separates. There's restaurants all over the place, but it really makes it feel like a community.
Oh, absolutely. And Ross, one day we got to get down there for the BattleBots nights. Like I've caught a bit of BattleBots, but like it'd be fun to get there and fully be invested and to spend the whole night just having drinks, having food, having some good laughs, and watching some of the crazy battles that go on in that show. Oh my God.
You can also at Glebe Central Pub find out when live music is going on. You can follow them on Instagram at Glebe Central Pub. And that's coming up on hockey season, that's where things are going to get really insane when we got the shuttle back, the Sens shuttle to and from the CTC. But hey, the Women's World Cup's on, and we know the Glebe Central Pub is a soccer supporter bar. Atletico Ottawa making their run at the Premier League Cup. And how about Red Blacks football? Whenever you're heading down to Lansdowne, make sure you stop at the Glebe Central Pub. You can find them in the heart of the Glebe, 779 Bank Street, and make sure you let them know that Locked On Senators sent you. All right, Pillsy, final segment on this Wednesday show. A reminder that you can follow the show on Twitter at SensCentral and on Instagram, LockedOn.Senators. We also want to let you know that the season is coming up, and if you or anyone you know has a small business or large in Ottawa and you want to really cater to the demographic of Ottawa Senators fans, give us a shout. You can find our contact info in our YouTube bio, or you can reach out to us on Twitter at SensCentral. DMs are open there if you'd like to advertise with Locked On Senators. All right, Pillsy, Scott Wheeler. What a love-hate relationship Senators fans have had with Scott, eh?
Yeah, but I mean, there's one thing I always give Scott credit for is he'll push back and he won't take it personal. Like, it's not like someone will get mad at his list and it's like instant block or anything like that. He'll push back. He's taken bets with people how draft picks are going to do, and Scott's always very generous with his time with us on this show. So I got nothing but love for Scott.
I was almost going to quote tweet it, but I didn't want him to take it the wrong way. I was going to say we should send him farm to fork meat delivery more often, because I think that might have been the final push that he needed to put Jake Sanderson at number 2.
I don't know, Ross. I don't think you need any sort of bribery or coercing to have Timmy and Jake Sanderson as the top guys from that draft, because I would love to watch someone try to argue otherwise. Like, it would be embarrassing to try to argue otherwise.
I don't even think Alexis Lafreniere or Quentin Byfield's parents would argue that Tim Stützle shouldn't have been number 1.
No, definitely.
So all that said, Tim Stützle, number 1, Jake Sanderson, number 2. And you know what the cherry on top is of Jake Sanderson being number 2?
Let's hear it.
That Detroit Red Wings fans can get mad that Lucas Raymond is behind Jake Sanderson at number 3. So I got a good kick out of that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And hey, everybody likes to chirp the Sens drafting. Now, mind you, when you have a 3rd and 5th overall, you better hope to hit those. But my rebuttal would be, if you had a 1st, 2nd, or 4th pick, you'd hope to hit better on those too. So that was just a great draft for the Sens. And it was awesome that that's the time they had all those draft picks, Ross, because we went hundreds of days without NHL hockey. So we got to dive into that one.
310 days between Ottawa Senators games. Like, do you remember those times? It was a different world.
It seriously was a different world. Yes.
I also think that Scott specifically put this sentence in for us on this redraft. Okay. I should mention Ridley Gregg. He has at 25 in his redraft. And you might remember he had him at 64 in his final rankings. So, all right, this is the quote from Scott Wheeler. There's an excerpt from my draft board on Gregg. As it turns out, getting the most of himself and climbing my board is exactly what he did. That's 0 for 3 for Scott on Sens first round picks for those keeping track at home.
Who would be keeping track at home? I wonder.
I don't know. It couldn't be us. But funny enough, Scott actually, I'd already reached out to him because he did his top 50 list of drafted prospects. And I told him, I said, I'm mad. I'm mad that I can't get mad at your list because obviously the Senators have graduated so many of their young prospects right now. But he's going to come on the show August 11th. August 11th, while Pillsy is on a plane to Winnipeg for my wedding, he's going to be on Locked On Senators. We're going to record it the day before. So already had that in the bank. That was already planned. And now here we go. Scott Wheeler, now man of the people on Sens Twitter for sure.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I really appreciate that he does do these though, right? Because I think it's a lesson to be learned for fans who are super critical the day of the draft. And it's also a lesson to be learned for Scott and others who do these rankings. And I appreciate that they do these rankings. Draft season would be very boring without them, but there's always, it's the hardest thing to do is project how a 17, 18-year-old kid is going to mature in 5-6 years. So I do think that there's lessons to be learned on both sides about maybe not being so combative when, like, yeah, you can have your guys, but to have like a firm opinion that you don't have any room to listen to the other side on, it's just kind of, it only sets yourself up for failure on both sides.
Yeah, exactly. But I think you can do that, Ross. Like we are in the entertainment business, so you can't be kind of I don't know the right word I'm looking for. You can't
Sit on the fence.
Yeah, you can't sit on the fence for every single prospect. Some of them you got to put your stamp on. You're like, this guy's going to be amazing. Some of them you got to be like, I don't buy it with this guy. And I've had some prospects where I've had that.
Awful pick.
Yeah, that's the thing. I wouldn't try not to use that wording. There's different ways around it, like we've talked about before. But yes, that's why I respect Scott, because he'll revisit things. And he doesn't just play the highlights of his home runs. He'll show the strikeouts as well. So again, nothing but love and respect for Scott Wheeler. Great guy.
Final question, question for you about Scott Wheeler's redraft. And Sens fans, I know you're probably going to grit your teeth when you hear this. If the Rangers drafted Tim Stützle, do they have a Stanley Cup by now?
Yeah,
probably. They got to the conference final without him.
I think so.
They might.
Yeah,
they might. So just shows you how important the draft is for people who, maybe were wondering why we spent so much time this year when the Sens didn't have a first, second, or third round pick in the draft, why we spent so much time. The draft is super fun, and it really does kind of set you up for the next 5-10 years of following the league. So yeah. I'm not already excited for next draft season, but come next May, June, I will be excited for the draft.
Yeah, I'll probably get excited late June. I figure I'll be focused on something else throughout May and early June.
Okay. Hey, by the way, FanDuel's put out their odds. You want to wrap up with a little FanDuel conversation about the Sens making the playoffs or not? Did we touch on this already?
I think you tweeted it, and I think we talked about the cup odds. I don't know if we got into playoff odds, but yes, our friends at FanDuel definitely have those odds out now.
Plus 112 for the Senators to make the playoffs.
I'm hopping in on that. Absolutely.
Plus 112. So if you put in $10, you get 12 back, and you can do the math there if you'd like to get crazy or not. I'm probably going to do 5 units. A nice 50 burger on it.
5 units. Nice. I like that. I mean, that's the thing.
I'm not crazy.
Yeah. Hey, we don't unit shame on this show.
We don't fruit shame either.
Oh, we do. We'll get to that. You got to diversify your portfolio, even in sports betting. Like, you got to have those daily money lines. You got to have a couple props, a couple futures. I'll say it. You got to diversify the portfolio. So I like that, Ross.
Yeah. Any final thoughts on today's show?
Well, you brought it up again, so I'm not letting you leave it here. Maybe you can bring it up for people watching on YouTube. But your fruit rankings today, Ross, you don't get ratioed that often on Twitter or X, or yesterday, my bad. But you're getting ratioed hard on this, and deservedly so. Having watermelon as a 6 overall with 6 different fruits is, I don't know what to tell you, man. But we did talk about after, there's a big difference between a watermelon slice, like a hot summer day, just diving into a watermelon slice, and cubed watermelon like that. Like, cubed watermelon does not hit the same as a slice of watermelon.
So my list goes as follows. This is those fruit trays that you can get at Safeway or Sobeys, wherever you shop. Pineapple, honeydew. No, I should do it. I was going counterclockwise, and I just went down.
Oh, no, don't do that. Do your ranking. Come on now.
Okay, pineapple is number
People
1.
know what fruit looks like.
Yeah, but they don't know which fruits are in. I was going to list them all, which is counterproductive as well.
Okay.
Pineapple 1, cantaloupe at number 2, which is getting way too much hate. Blueberries at 3, strawberries at 4, honeydew at 5, and watermelon at 6. Now, I can understand the argument for watermelon over honeydew.
Yeah, come on. That's easy.
But beyond that, I'm pretty confident in my list.
Here's the thing. Honeydew has to be last, and we talked about this too, but I'll say it for the audience. Give me one example in human history that someone has bought honeydew on its own and ate honeydew on its own. Honeydew is only ever in a group of fruit, and I will not hear an argument that someone has bought a honeydew and had honeydew on its own. It's not a thing. My rankings would go as followed.
Tweet it at Pillsy if you're eating honeydew by itself.
Yeah, prove it. Prove it. I want picture evidence. Pineapple 1, I mean, that's a great pick.
You don't think honeydew has time to develop like these draft picks?
No, honeydew is a do not draft for me. A do not draft.
By the way, I almost got mad at Scott and was like, hey, you snubbed Tyler Clevin. But then I realized they 1, 2, and 25.
What?
I said I almost got mad at him for snubbing Tyler Clevin out of the top 31.
Oh, okay.
But I decided, you know what?
Let him slide.
We'll let it slide for now.
That's nice of you. Yeah, pineapple, watermelon is number 2 for me. I'm going strawberry 3, cantaloupe 4, blueberry 5, and honeydew 6, obviously.
You don't like, man, I think strawberry over blueberry is a hot take.
Is it?
I think so. I love blueberries.
All right, well, I'll tweet out my list and we'll see how mad people get, and we'll see how this goes.
So far, I think it's like 3 likes and 20 responses or something. It's very mean.
I mean, food takes you got to expect this.
Oh no, I'm happy. There was too much positivity on X today with the redraft stuff. So I said, you know what? Yeah, yesterday. Thanks. Let's just get wild. Let's have some fun. And let's have some fun on Friday. My final thoughts is we've got Stephen Halliday, the disher, the man who all the other interviews we did at Dev Camp said you got to watch Stephen Halliday. This guy is ready to take another step forward in his development. So we're going to have that conversation with Stephen Halliday on Friday's episode of Locked On Senators. For today, we say goodbye for Brandon Piller. I'm Ross Levitan. This has been the Locked On Senators podcast, your team every day.